Hi, Pastor Mark here. Time for another quick Bible study. Pastor Mark from the Word of Life Fellowship Church in Omaha, Nebraska. I hope that you're having a great day, and let's get right into the Word. Today, we're going to look at a passage, in the book of Job, chapter 33, verses 26 through 30. We find that sometimes calamities, I'm going to use the word calamities here, they can serve a purpose in a person's life, to turn our direction, our life's direction, to avoid a worse ending. Although not everybody takes the turn. But for those who do, they find God's grace and mercy. So let's read this passage. I'm going to put my glasses on, Reading from the New International Version translation today. Job chapter 33, starting with verse 26. Then find that person can pray to God and find favor with him. They will see God's face and shout for joy. He will restore them to full well-being. And they will go to others and say, quote, I have sinned. I have perverted what is right. But I did not get what I deserved. God has delivered me from going down to the pit, and I shall live to enjoy the light of life. End quote. Verse 29 says, God does all these things to a person, twice, even 3 times, to turn them back from the pit, that the light of life may shine on them. That's a very interesting passage to me. Excuse me. We know that in the New Testament, we find that all things work together for the good to them who love the Lord, who are the called according to his purpose, etc. Some people would say, today you hear this expression a lot. Oh, everything happens for a reason. And there may be some truth in that, but when you really, if you squeeze that down to the minuscule level, the micro level, it's kind of difficult to say that everything. But in this context, calamities, talking about things that we would perceive as bad or stressful or tragic in our lives, our career. My allergies are bugging me today. I apologize. I should have taken 2 pills last night. I thought about it, but didn't. But when things happen, there's a reason. God can use that and cause us to turn. That is what this individual is saying to Job. This is one of the people saying, talking to Job. Really, they're trying to persuade him to admit his sin and his faults and the horrible thing that he must have done in order for all these terrible things to have happened to him. And they were terrible. Terrible things. I cannot imagine personally. I have friends, I have relatives that have lost a child, and that's horrific. I can't imagine the suffering and the pain that goes along with that. And I selfishly, I try not to think about it. Forgive me for saying that, but it's horrifying. Job lost all 10 of his children in the same day. All of them. All of them. He could have sustained losing his livestock, but when his kids were gone, he and his wife were crushed. That's a tragedy. That's a terrible, terrible thing. And that was not good. But Job did not do anything to deserve it. Now here's a lesson for us all. I didn't intend to say this, but it's coming, so I'll just say it. We call them friends. Commentaries, excuse me, I'm so sorry. Commentaries, Bible commentaries, refer to these three individuals that come and speak to Job as his friends. But when you read this book of Job, and read it carefully, and read his responses, you'll find they're actually not his friends. He knows them. These are people he knows, but they're not his friends. And they are not come to comfort him. They have come to get the dirt, find out what he did to deserve this terrible thing, because their perspective is, if something horrible has happened to someone like has happened to Job, he's a rotten sinner and God is judging him. So we ought not to think that when people are suffering or bad things happen in people's lives or their jobs or whatever, that it's God judging them. In Job's case, it was the devil, and the Lord allowing the devil as a test of Job's faith. It isn't always a test. Sometimes things just happen. Solomon, writing in Proverbs, says time and chance happens to everybody. Sometimes things just happen, and it's not necessarily the hand of God or the devil, or it's just happened. But regardless, what we find here in Job chapter 33, if that person turns to the Lord, verse 26, if they pray to God, it says he will restore them to full well-being. Wow. If we repent, if we turn, if we say, Lord, excuse me, Lord, I'm not worthy. I'm not perfect. I'm not without fault, and I need you. And ask him for forgiveness, ask him for direction. We'll find favor with him, and he will restore. That's amazing. That is amazing. And he uses these calamities, we find, that happen in life to turn, so we avoid what this chapter refers to as the pit. Now, in this context, in chapter 33, it's specifically talking about death being the pit. But I would submit the pit referring to eternal damnation, being lost from separated from God for eternity and suffering in the torment. You can avoid that by turning to the Lord, and he will give you the light of life. Wow. Interesting passage. If you find my words about these guys not being Job's friend as something maybe you disagree with, well, read it again. Read it again. Somewhere between the 27th and 30th or 31st chapter, you find Job actually addressing them and saying, "Who you guys? You don't even know me." In so many words, you're these guys. And he knows them, but they're not his friends. They really came to get the dirt, but there wasn't any dirt. And the calamity that happened was not some bad judgment from God. It was God allowing things to happen as a test to Job in his faith. He does come through it. Spoiler alert, he comes through it. And the Lord reprimands the guys who came to get the dirt on Job. So Job didn't do anything to deserve this. I've completely paraphrased that. You may disagree with my paraphrasing. That's okay. Well, I hope that you found this to be a blessing to you today. Because of God's grace and mercy, those who ask God to forgive them will definitely not, quote, get what they deserve, end quote, but receive forgiveness and in the end, everlasting life. And you find that. Get my phone to wake up again here. Verse 27, reading again from the New International Version, talking about the person who received forgiveness from God and grace from God. And they will go to others and say, I have sinned, I perverted what is right. They've owned up to it. They said, I did wrong. I didn't deserve any goodness from God. Last phrase, but I did not get what I deserved. Whew. Folks, if we'll turn to the Lord, He'll forgive, and you won't get what you deserve. You'll get His grace and His mercy. Wow, that's amazing. I just realized my shirt is about the same color as the wall behind me, so forgive me. If it just looks like a head floating out here, I'm sorry. Job chapter 33, 26 through 30. Interesting. Well, I hope it's more than thought-provoking to you today. I hope it provokes you to ask God to forgive you if you have anything in your life that needs forgiving. Well, God bless you. Hope to see you this Sunday at 10:30 at the True by Hilton. We're meeting on the main floor of the big conference room. It's right behind the scooters on 72nd Street at 72nd and Haskell. God bless you. Have a great rest of your day.